Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have a very dear friend of mine all the way from Portugal. Obviously, but he's not coming on from the beach, he's coming from the office. Hello, Hugo Farinha. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Turner. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Long time.
Exactly. You know, there's always never say never again, as they say. It's spoken like James Bond.
That's right.
Anyway, yeah, no, great to have you on the show. And the reason why I wanted Hugo to come on the show was because, the G&T session now is actually over 125 episodes, which is quite incredible. Hugo knows I was recording them actually when we were collaborating a few years ago. It's kind of like gone past that 100 mark. Now that's when it's 1,000 episodes, try and catch up Joe Rogan. Never going to catch up Joe Rogan. But we talk about growth and technology, G&T, with gifted and talented people. And one of the things that I always celebrated when I was collaborating with Hugo and businesses that you're going to explain he's working at was that you are a CTO, yeah, you are a co-founder, of a software company, but you are very accessible, yeah. So from a personality point of view and from a like team collaboration point of view, and so I suppose one of the things I want to do is get you on the show to kind of help other CTOs that may be out there or other co-founders to understand a bit more about your journey and understand about the kind of the trials and tribulations, what you've learned, because we're now in 2025, we're now in August 2025. Everybody should be obviously not recording podcasts. They should be lying on the beach, getting a suntan. But we're mad people, so we're going to be on the show today. But obviously, that's why I wanted to have you from Lisbon. You see, 'cause it makes me feel like I'm nearly on the beach. But yeah, I mean, so that was my thinking behind having you on the show. So I suppose for people that don't know you yet, could you just maybe introduce yourself and explain what your role is and a bit about you, what gets you up in the morning today?
So I'm Hugo Farinha, as you mentioned, co-founder and CTO at Virtuoso. So here we are reimagining quality assurance through autonomous testing powered by AI. I have been a technologist all my life, starting as an engineer automating legacy telecom systems. And since then, I've built a platform in media, healthcare, advertising, revenue assurance, and so on. What gets me up in the morning? I'm not a morning person, first of all, but
Sorry, what gets you up in the evening then? Is
but probably in the evening is I don't know, the interception of creativity and systems thinking, right? I think thinking about how you solve the next problem and the next problem, and the idea that we can design technology that not only solves problems but also changes the way we think about them. And I'm especially motivated how AI can shift testing from a manual bottleneck to a strategic accelerator. I think you talked a little bit about me and that I'm accessible. So I'm definitely a CTO, but I always think products all my life. I am very passionate about the problem, and now to basically make that bridge between solving the problem for the user with the technology. And I think that is make me that characteristic that I'm easy to approach. And I think this is very aligned with what we are facing right now in terms of technology, right? When you think that AI potentially will replace developers in the near 5-10 years, at least writing the code, not
I'm
replace.
sure it won't replace CTOs. CTOs are very, very, very important people.
I think it won't replace
Wink, wink,
anyone.
wink, 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 wink.
I don't think it will replace anyone that is able to evolve, because the part of the product is critical, right? If you stop coding because AI is going to do the code, what is your role as a human with the machines on that world, right? And I think he's thinking about the product, always the product, and all the roles will continue to exist as long as your focus is on the product. So what problem are you trying to solve, and if what the machines built are going to solve that problem, and of course with all the right characteristics, performance, reliability, and so on, security. So that, I think, is the focus for many, not just CTOs, but many roles on the software technologies. Just need to do that shift towards the product.
But just a question around that, because it's obviously a very raging topic, right? Every day, every week, and is it creating anxiety in engineering teams and technical teams and CTO teams? Is it obviously I'm not sat there as a CTO developing code every day. I'm doing other things, right? But I've got a technical background, so I kind of appreciate that kind of encroachment, you could say, on the domain of the IDE and everything you do and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I've spoken to a few different people, on different shows that I run, and the heat seems to be getting hotter in the kitchen, so to speak. And I suppose you speaking as a CTO and a co-founder, importantly because you'd be part of the founding team, is are you seeing that? How are you managing that? Because that's quite important to get right, isn't it? Any thoughts?
You are right. So changes are always difficult to humans, right? And embrace those, and especially when it's such a huge change like this one, and people just don't want to believe. They try to find excuse. No, this actually doesn't work, or these AI models don't reason. It's a probabilistic model. Definitely, it's all of that, but we cannot forget this is it's a technology, and a big one that is coming, and people obviously sometimes try to fight against it, which is the wrong thing. So you should embrace it, and you should prepare for what's coming, looking at aspects that are good, looking at the aspects that are wrong, try to manage those. In terms of the engineering team, it's like for any CTO or any head of engineering, is creating incentives for people to embrace that change with less fear and try to see the good side, because you cannot fight against it. The ones that fight will the ones that will get replaced.
Yes, it's a bit like, I suppose, back to the kind of the industrial revolution, in England, where they had the kind of what was it, the printing press or the textile machine. They tried to smash them. Yeah. What you're saying is be open to it and embrace it and see how you can actually evolve as a human.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
which areas are you seeing as particular opportunities? Then, is there particular areas in the kind of the sphere of your CTO role that you're saying are kind of like no-brainers, or things that are kind of saying you must like switch from human to AI? Is there some areas that are obvious, or is it still kind of shaking out?
I think this will come progressively, like every other technology. So if you look at the cloud revolution, right, and we had like Salesforce, I think in 19 something, that released the first successful SaaS application.
Yeah, 99 it was. Yeah, 1999.
And yeah,
Obviously,
then
a good year for music as well, because Prince released
that's
1999 as well.
those
Yeah.
are the great times. But then you could see all the industry moving into that direction, right? Then you had like AWS launching, and then Google launched, and Microsoft. Then you came with Terraform and companies that built Docker and so on. All of this happened, and not immediately. So if we look at 1990, right, or 1999, and we had like 5 to 10 years of that happening, and suddenly everyone is on the cloud, right? So if you look at 10 years for something that is not as big as this one, and you look at the time frame of 10 years, imagine what will happen now when once we start, all the companies are now embraced on agentic AI and AI, and they're building stuff at very early days. Imagine what will be in 5, 10 years. This will be a complete revolution, much bigger than the cloud revolution for sure. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, because I probably didn't capture the whole thing, but let me know.
No. I mean, I think what you're saying is, as part of it, it's a mindset. Yeah, about actually, are you open to new change and new things that are going to happen? But then what you're saying also, I think, is that it's the next big wave, and you've got to get on your surfboard and engage with it. You can't just kind of like watch it over there and just expect for
Yeah,
your world to stay the same. I think that's what's
exactly.
you kind of amplifying the Charles Darwin piece around the only thing that is consistent is change.
That's really right. You need to evolve, right? There is no other way. You cannot just say, okay, I accept, but I will continue to do the same things. You need to really see what are the potential where you can use all over the place. I was internally on a whole hands on the company, saying that in terms of our focus, in terms of engineering, will be AI empowered features. And there was a question saying, we are only doing AI right now. We are not doing any other things. And I explained that you solve a problem for a user, but AI is a technology that you always should look how solving that problem. Can I boost the productivity of that user using AI or not? Because it's like, if you are building something when computers were around, you were not thinking, I'm going to use a pencil to write a book, or I will use a laptop, of course, because of all the potential that technology brings to me, right? And I think it's how people need
So
to.
what you're saying is you like use the appropriate tool for the job.
Exactly. I'm not saying force to everything to have AI, but think about, we are building this feature, we are solving this problem for the user. Is there a way that we can use AI to augment the user speed, velocity, doing this, and make the work better and the user experience better, or not? In most of the cases, you ask me, where are the potential to use AI, and what are definitely there are low hanging fruits, but I think you can use it across the board nowadays. There are not for everything, of course. It's not one tool that solves everything, but you can use AI to augment everything that you do, or almost everything that.
So one of the things that I know, that when you did your introduction, you talked about lots of industry sectors you've worked in and lots of kind of areas. Could you just help the audience understand, where did the opportunity come of revolutionizing the software segment that you're working on now, which I think is software testing? Is that right? Is that the kind of segment that you focused on? And what did you see was the problem, the original problem, and how did you get into a situation where you became, because you obviously went from being, obviously presume worked in different companies. How did you get the opportunity to become a co-founder? Because I think for people that are maybe aspiring CTOs, they may be engineers today or head of engineering, they want to become a CTO, they want to become a co-founder. What was your path and what can they learn from that? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so basically being very passionate about the development and building software and products. One of the biggest bottlenecks that exists is testing those products, right, and shipping those into production and making sure that you are not breaking anything, and you will not have unhappy users. I didn't come from the industry, definitely, of QA. I know from being in the SDLC, in the software development lifecycle, part of it, the problems and the pain points. So when there was an opportunity to build something startup, by means, for me, a startup means that you need to bring something new. It needs to be novel. It cannot be just doing something that already exists. It needs to be something that will bring some value to the market. Obviously, I was very, very passionate, and QA and the problem that we were trying to solve was then difficult, right? You are trying to automate testing for companies. So when looking at this, I look at the problems that existed there, the ones that I knew. So manual testing was blocking, installing everything. Automation was only accessible to engineers, not to everyone. There was a lack of business validation during that process. And when I look at this, I basically thought about a product that would be autonomous. So that was the North Star. I want to build something autonomous. And we are talking about 2016, where AI was, LLMs were still far away from, well, they already exist, but they were not accessible or in a point that we could use. We start developing our own machine learning models to do that. We did some very interesting experiments with the product, which they were not production ready. They built more work for the users than if they just stick to the job. But what we achieved during that period, I think, was really very important for the industry. We managed to democratize testing, not testing, democratize software automation testing, or software test automation. And we did this by building a natural language where the user could describe tests in plain English. And we have cases like, I think you were there, that we convert manual testers into automation engineers in a couple of hours, right? That was, I think, one of the biggest milestones that we achieved there. And we kept progressing towards that vision. So always the North Star being keep doing an autonomous software testing. And I think that the transition was exactly that. So it was bringing that innovation into the startup, the company, and that made me the CTO and co-founder, to be honest. Because when I joined, I was not even having that role, so I had to prove myself on that. But when I joined with everything, right? I basically was very committed to do a difference in the industry, and that, of course, took me to the role and position that I'm in today. And it have been a great journey.
Oh, I see. So you were promoted into that role. That's what you're saying. You were promoted into that role.
I think I lost you a little bit.
So you were promoted into that role, Hugo?
Yes, I was promoted into that role on the first year, potentially, of being
Okay.
with the company.
So that's interesting. So, but then what you were saying was you saw the opportunity to transform the roles of people in organizations, and you said the word about democratizing it. So, is that kind of expanding the footprint, I presume, of testing? Is that right?
Yes, so from one point of view, yes. The real gains with this is basically speed, reduction on cost, because like I mentioned, one of the bottlenecks was the testing part was blocking, and it was being a bottleneck for shipping faster and bringing the products into the market. But it's an essential piece, and you cannot remove it, because otherwise you risk the whole thing. Because if you ship something that doesn't work, you potentially will lose customers, and companies cannot afford that. So there is that piece needs to be there. Testing needs to continue to exist. Is how you bring more people to do that, how you free up the developers to continue to build product instead of building product and tests, and you bring more people involved in the process, not just the people from QA, but you bring business analysts, making sure that they can also input their validation into if the business requirements or the business intention are being produced in the right way across all the stage.
Oh,
And I
so
think
is that kind of changing the line about what, because you've got like technical testing you do on an application, and you've actually got business acceptance testing. So what you're saying is with the democratization you do with what you build is then actually you extend the number of people that can use it, so you make it accessible, yeah, and
yes, yes,
usable. But then also
yeah.
it then switches into more kind of how do you as the business sign off on the actual capability that you're actually deploying? Is that kind of the switch as well that's happening? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think it opens lots of opportunities for companies to do multiple things and multiple validations, which they were not able to do until you release something, and then you validate upon the time that you were releasing if things were correct or not. Now you can keep pace with development. You are no longer a bottleneck. Business analysts can chip in also during the process and validate that what is producing is aligned with the business. Lots of changes in the process which modernize that process. Is no longer a clunky process with siloed stages, but a more collaborative space where business can have collaboration between the different departments.
Yes, and it's also then embraces that concept of what I think I don't know if you still use it, but that sort of shifting left. Is that right, or is it shift? I
So
don't know. Is it shifting left and shifting right? I
yes,
don't know.
the term shifting left will start being used like almost everything that I see on this business. So marketing is amazing, right? They also are visionaries because they start using the terms even if they don't really do it, but they see, okay, how about if we can just speed up testing and shift things left? So we shift left since the beginning because our language doesn't depend about any technical characteristics of the application. So you may not even have the application there, but you can write the tests. If you have the designs or wireframes or whatever, or requirements, you can just write the tests from those. And once the application is live, you can just execute those tests and they will pass, because Virtuoso will understand which elements to interact with and so on. And we are talking that we have this since the long way again from it was very powerful, and it continued to be. And now we are on the next stage, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, I mean, so when we were working together at that time, one of the things that I think was because I think people didn't believe it was possible. That was that. It's like how do customers or organizations have the belief? Because that problem had been such a thorn in the side of system development.
Yeah,
There's a lot of, I sense that we were doing a lot of like evangelizing
yeah,
about, trying to explain to the market, no, there is a way forward. There is a path through this jungle to the other side, and there's an oasis there. And that was what I found quite an interesting exercise, because it was quite challenging.
it was.
And you're also at the same time, I suppose, you're also developing the product based on feedback from customers as well. So it was also kind of like quite wild and chaotic, but also exciting at the same time.
You're right, and it's difficult, right? Because when people see these things, they feel this is too magic, this is just demo, this doesn't work, or just work but that doesn't cover the hardest use cases. And it was lots of evangelizing, like you mentioned, saying and explaining, and give me your problem, I will solve it, until we could prove it. It was hard to convince people that that actually worked. And especially when we are talking about developers that like to code, or even on QA, they were very strong belief that they need to have control about the code. But it's not about control. With Virtuoso, you also have control. I think the fear was making a difference on their organizations by owning a framework that they have built against a tool that was democratized, was free, that everyone could use and do a great job with it, as long as they are committed. And those were very difficult obstacles. They are still. So when we look into companies, some of them still prefer to do coding, in spite of the problems that creates, and the bottlenecks that creates, and the time that it takes, and the amount of effort and engineering it needs, instead of using tools like Virtuoso that can really speed up their process and they're shipping faster, and with less costs. So
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So you're talking about control, but you're also talking about fundamental behavior, aren't you? Because I think that is the some of the challenges as well is about the change that's got to be made by the developers or the testers, because they actually, is it quite scary for them because they're kind of going into this new world and they're kind of like, oh,
it is.
like, can I trust it? Is it because I'm developing code that's going to then usually be tested and then it's shipped, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to get a clip round the ear or whatever, or a hit on the head by my head of engineering. It's like that kind of risk piece as well. Yeah.
I think it's the same problem that we're talking about, the resistance to change, right? But it won't longer persist much time, right? Because with now, for example, right now, our core focus is in evolving Virtuoso AI-driven autonomous testing platform into a truly agentic system. So we are building a framework where AI agents collaborate to understand the application requirements. Then they generate and execute tests, adapt to changes, and surface quality insights as well on the platform. And all this autonomously. So there will be a time that even the most resistant people will say, well, I cannot keep the pace with this. And all this includes that natural language interface that I was saying. So the user can still keep in control, intersect the AI and say, you did it wrong. I want more this to the right or to the left. And there is real-time adaptation to code changes. So every time you ship something, you can restructure the whole thing. And you have all these agents coming in, helping you out and doing things almost automatically for you and just notify you. And for example, we are also working on seamless migration from legacy tests to actually our NLP. And this is I'm going to tell you a story. This was the first prototype of this. It was built by a non-developer, vibe coding. So he started consuming requirements and actually adapting those requirements to generate tests. If I ask him what is the language that he built that, he said, I didn't build it, I vibe code all the thing. And he actually hammered the problem and then unlock already hundreds of K in revenue to us with that. So it's like very, very, very impressive. And with this,
just a quick question: who was the person that did the vibe coding? Then was that the customer? Was that the?
No, it's internal.
It's internal. Oh, right.
Now coding, which are not developers, but they are very passionate about the product and the customer problems, and they want to make a difference. And these new tools will allow those people that didn't invest in being a developer, but they are a problem solver by nature, to actually access that. So because they don't have now 5-10 years to learn how to code, and have that experience, they have easy access to vibe coding and prompting, and as they can structure really well what they intend from to be built, they can actually be very successful.
Oh wow! So you're even democratizing and empowering your own workforce to come up with innovative ideas to solve problems for your customers. Fantastic.
I would say in 5 or 10 years, vibe coders would be what companies hire, not traditional developers.
Hey, so I've got an idea. See, you won't be called CTO, you'll be called CVO, Chief Vibe Officer. What about
that? Chief Vibe Officer. That would be good. Good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. No, that's. I mean, so what? That's really fascinating, because I think when you start to think about the ramifications of what you've been working on, I mean, this is why I was always so impressed with what you were doing at Virtuoso, because it was like it was this fundamental mind shift in how fundamental mind shift in how you actually transition a very old process that's been running for decades, right? And you shake it up, yeah. You shake up the development process, and you kind of turn it upside down, and you challenge a lot of the beliefs, and you go and slaughter some sacred cows. Yeah, I'm using all these kind of analogies now. Yeah, but
That's
so
what you mean.
well, no, but then you sprinkle on a bit of AI and agentic AI, as you just mentioned there, where I'm noticing that people are trying to people are they're not developers or operations, the DevOps engineers, and then they evolve from they're not engineers, they're AI native engineers, yeah, or so it's or they're AI prompt engineer. There's all this kind of evolution of role definitions going on. This is what makes the technology industry so fascinating. It is like Prince, isn't it? The artist formerly known as. You just have a symbol, yeah. Maybe actually we would do vibe podcasting in the future, Hugo. Actually, me and you won't actually be here. We'll be on the beach, and we just like set an agent to go and record the episode, and we just don't need to turn up. What about that?
I think something like that already exists. Probably not to the quality that we want, but yeah, that is
Well,
definitely.
no. I've used it, Notebook LM. Yeah, you just
Yeah,
yeah. It's
that is great. Sounds really good, right?
it's the death of the G&T Sessions. It's going to be like where is that host and that guest? Sorry, they're drinking sangria on the beach. No. Thank you for sharing that, because I think the way you articulated it as well, it really comes home about the obstacles. Yeah, so that the kind of the inertia, you have to be resilient to keep pushing. Keep pushing forward, keep evangelizing, keep saying no, it is possible, believing, and then it must have been fascinating for you seeing, like the light bulb come on with your customers, right? As they suddenly realize, oh my God, we can do this, and this in this time, yeah, and completely remove this bottleneck. Is that what you've been seeing with the customers you've been working with?
Yes, and it's amazing to see the excitement on the customers when they actually make it work and they think a big revolution on their organizations. It's actually very, very. I think that's
Inspiring.
inspiring and what gets me up in the evening.
No, that's great. No, because you see, if you're a CTO, right? So if you're the builder, right? You're building a team, you're building a product and you want then the sales and go-to-market team to actually then take that into customers and understand their problems and help the product solve the problems. So there's nothing like one of the biggest compliments is building something that people use. If you build something that nobody uses, that's kind of like not a great place to be, is it? So that feedback loop it must be incredibly valuable for you as a leader, as a technology leader, and also for your team. I mean, I presume you do. Do you do things like debrief the engineers about what customers are saying? Do you do that kind of thing? I presume, to keep them aware of the feedback.
We do that, but I think we can do better. I think ideally you want to bring customers to speak to your engineering team, because that's which brings the motivation that sometimes they need. Because one thing is to hear from me or from the sales guys, which is good, but even better if you can bring a customer which is passionate and that you hear that customers saying what they feel about the work that they have produced. That is what is the booster on an engineering team, right? And this is what we are looking right now. And definitely, you are not, or I'm not on this journey alone, right? And I don't write this just by myself. I'm surrounded with very smart, grounded people. I have my customers. I have the market. I have all of this that I need to collect as my personal and the company's growth. And this is the key to any product success. You cannot just do it alone. You need to understand that even what you think may be wrong or may be a direction that doesn't align with others. And by embracing that learn, same thing, embracing the change that we spoke at the beginning, is how you grow faster, how you learn and grow personally as well, and how make your product a success. I think those are the key factors for it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes the journey more worthwhile, doesn't it? Because you actually feel like you're making progress, and through the hard times and those late nights or those early mornings. Maybe not for you, but late nights for you.
Mornings is early morning. It's still still
Yeah, it's
dark.
morning. It's morning somewhere. It's morning somewhere.
Morning somewhere. Exactly.
So, I mean, in terms of the thing about one of the things that I was also going to ask you about was, I suppose, about there's this phrase I use, peaks and valleys, right? So you know, when guests come on the show, you know, obviously some people want to talk about all their successes, right? All their kind of their peaks and all the things that they've done, and that's great, yeah, because people can learn from that. But there's nothing like learning from the valleys as well. It sounds like the business has made great progress, that you've built the team, you're getting really good feedback, you're getting good adoption, etc., etc. What were the other learnings around the successes, and also maybe some things you could touch on around what were some of the challenges and the valleys, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah. It's been anything but smooth sailing for sure. I can tell.
You can't say that. You're supposed to say smooth sailing.
Not really.
Okay.
So I definitely had moments where I felt on the top of the world, leading teams and building great tech. And there was times I question every decision that I make, and this makes part. Is the obviously I felt insecure at some points. I felt that I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. I question everything, but then you have again when you align with the market and you hear customers and you have that all the aspects coming in about what parts good do you do, then you see that you are making progress and you get some validation that actually you are doing and resolving really interesting aspects. So early in my career, I joined Via Tecla during the first internet boom, for example, in Portugal. I was building national portals, something that if you look nowadays, that is ugly. How is it compared to what is now? It was really just the beginning of the internet and all of those things. But those portals would give access to users to book travel, to book hotels, to basically look at the newspaper digitally and so on. And I was doing this and I was excited, but only to see the bubble burst, right? It was amazing. Everyone was getting money out of it, and suddenly, boof, it ended, right? And then for example, I led teams with fast changing sectors where priorities just flip overnight. And one of the most challenging transitions, I was going from engineer leader to founder, definitely. It demands a mental shift from product solving to people leading, from shipping features to designing a business. In those valleys, I learned to lean into uncertainty and surrounded myself of brilliant, grounded people. And definitely, it have been all this journey very interesting from a growth perspective, where I have to learn a lot, but not a smooth sailing at all.
Yeah, I mean, the way you started that, where you said it was like, being on top of a mountain and then obviously being in the depths of despair. I mean, thanks for sharing that. I mean, it just shows that what anybody says, if somebody says it comes on this show, and there has been a few people, naming no names, that say they never have any valleys, right? It's all peaks, yeah? So it's like, it's quite challenging to understand if that's maybe the 100% truth. But no, thanks for being so open about that, because I think, in my experience talking to lots of people on this show and obviously being through personal experiences, it's to have a clean slate on that is, I think, pretty much impossible. So, I think the thing is also, I suppose, it sounds like you've developed as a you talked about being a technical leader and moving from product to people leadership, because obviously in the CTO role, you're not doing all the coding, but I presume in the early days you were doing more hands-on work, and then it's evolved over time as you put people in place to do that, and then that brings it, that develops a new set of skills for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to learn of letting go some of the things that I'm really passionate. So I'm deeply technical. I started coding very young, not because someone told me, but because I was fascinated by the idea that you could create something from nothing. Over time, I've become more selective about where I spend my technical energy, but I still review architecture, design, AI flows, and explore frameworks. Put my hands in code to experiment and to understand, so I can basically or explain or talk, have technical conversations. So I need to know the stuff. Technology isn't just a tool for me, it's a way of thinking. It teaches me how to structure abstraction, interaction. And there wasn't always a plan, definitely, but was always a direction. But things that matter and do things that matter with people who cares, right? That was always the direction. So definitely, I don't code as much as I was doing. I don't code every day. Definitely, I don't code every week. I spend months without coding because I was focused on growing on some other aspects on the business. Fortunately, now I have some time back after those learnings. I can continue to do those tasks. I don't require so much time because I already know how to do it, and I have some time that I can still code and explore, especially and do these exploratory and research activities doing code, and that is what allows me to be on the room with engineers to discuss technical features with them and so on.
That's cool. I mean, yes, it's kind of like I suppose you become then you see you become yourself becoming more of a hybrid then, kind of like you had a core technical background and then you've obviously had to become more business and technical. Is that
Yes.
is that the kind of evolution that you've seen yourself develop into?
Yes. For when you go to a leadership role, you do need it's because of your audience, right? You stop being just on the meetings with the product and engineering team, and you start going to shift with the leadership team and the customers, and you cannot continue to just talk as if they understand. If they are not technical, they will not understand what you're talking about, and you are getting just boring and to those people. So you need to make that bridge between the idea and the concepts of technology, but focus more on the product, like I mentioned, on the value that will what is there for them, and having that discussion and aligning on that discussion is the key. So definitely a big change on the posture and how do you interact with people.
So I suppose the next thing I was going to ask you about was about predictions. So I suppose we're now in 2025. By 2030, is the CTO role going to be still important? Would you say?
Like I mentioned, all the roles will be important. They will adapt definitely, but they will still exist. So I can give you predictions, but if you ask me tomorrow, probably they are different. Not tomorrow, but in 6 months, they are different. So, like I mentioned, I think agents now are going to be embedded in most of digital workflows, right? Most of the applications will have agents, and we are talking also about testing, product planning, documentation, and so on. We'll have like co-pilots and autonomous operators everywhere doing stuff. And this is just the beginning, right? Because in 10 years, like I mentioned, software will be written more by machines, interpreting intent from a human than the writing code, and testing and developing will converge into a continuous flow of validation. And this will be, like I mentioned, companies will start hiring vibe coders and not developers as the traditional role, because you want people with attitude and anger of building things, and software will basically do the hockey stick in terms of speed and releases.
Yeah, I suppose you need people who understand the business and the actual process and the key results you're trying to do, but then the technical stuff can be maybe enabled through the right platforms. Is that the thinking?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. I heard an analogy recently from someone from Claude. He was talking about vibe coding and shipping something to production. He mentioned something very interesting, like in the old days where people used to code in assembly, and then the compilers come in with the languages that allow you to compile code into assembly, and developers and the programmers at the time didn't trust the compiler. So after the compiler did the work, they were checking the assembly to see if the assembly was correct, right? And I see the same thing with vibe coding. So we don't trust that now, for sure. We don't trust the code that the machine produces. We think that, oh, the code is potentially wrong, and we are going to check the code to see if the code is right. In the future, we are not going
but then currently you check the code and it's better than what you actually wrote in the first place. Is that what's happening?
that can be a problem, right? But it never is. We as humans, we are very interesting, right? If we are aiming to a negative point, we will find the negative stuff, all the negative stuff. If we are looking for a positive stuff, we will find positive stuff. So it's never G&T.
It's never cut and dried. Yeah, okay.
Exactly, and that is quite interesting, right? And if we look in, I don't know, 20 or something years, it will be crazy, right? It will be the dominant ecosystems will be agent ecosystems, not apps. The agents will coordinate, negotiate, and optimize outcomes, potentially running on platforms that we haven't even conceived yet. And we will need a whole new governance layer to ensure alignment with human values and how we rearrange ourselves as society, right? Because this will grow.
But just a quick question. I mean, I know there's kind of like this bubble come up about agents and agentic AI and stuff like that. But what like you explained very clearly about what the bottleneck was before we testing. It was like you had to do it. If you didn't do it, you could cause a problem with your software release. It was a bottleneck. You had to automate it. Yeah. What do you see with the agent agentic AI topic then? What are you seeing what's the bottleneck they're solving there? What's the issue? What's the problem they're solving? Or is it just
Is the humans? Let me explain because
get the humans out of the way now? Okay, all right.
The velocity that you think and you want to make things real, right? You need to build. There, the build is the bottleneck, right? So if you have the whole idea conceived, then you need to wait 1 year for that idea to come to truth, right? To be realized. So that is the bottleneck that agents will solve. Is that how you make from one idea and one concept, one thing that you fully understand and know how to solve, into all making that really fast. It's like if you go building a house, right? We have improved how to build a house, but I think the future will come on that physical world that we live, where you can output a house almost instantaneously. You go to the software and you say how your house wants to be built, and the house gets extruded somehow and assembled in questions of minutes. Can you imagine that? And I think the world will evolve to that. Now you can build a house in a few weeks or months, which are already not years like it was before. But it will come into a point that it will be hours or minutes to have a house built, because you just model it in the software, and there is machines that will just build a house for you. And this is the same for a software in a digital world that we live, right? Where you basically have an idea and you give that plan to those agents, and those agents start building and comes with the output. And like I mentioned, it will be a flow of validation of you sending the intent, validating the output, sending the intent, validate the output, until you are actually secure that, okay, the output is great. I can use this in production. My customers can use this in production.
So the headline is that because every company's evolving to become a software company, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the overall software cycle. You were fixing the testing issue, the testing bottleneck, but the agents fixes the overall human element of the overall software build and develop and test. Yeah, is that right? Is that
And
what
the agents will also do the testing, so it will end up to be everything. So every part that we're talking about, the building will basically be replaced by AI, but the validation still is in charge of the human. It will be a different validation. Right now we need to see all the tests executed, but at some point we will find validation mechanisms that allow us to have confidence in release. So if we look what software testing is and what QA is, it answers a very simple question to organizations. Am I ready to release? Am I ready to go to the market? Right? It's
can I ship?
Fundamental question is am I ready or not? And it's the same thing if you have machines building stuff, the same question will stand, right? Am I ready to go? So those validations need to be in shape, and the user will say that if it's okay or not based on the outputs, that potentially some of validation would be done with AI.
Well, that's one of the questions that triggered in my mind when you were talking about what's the next question. So the next question is about, in the post-agentic world, agentic AI world or agent world, what do humans do? What are humans going to do? Because if you have all this work is going to get covered by agents and agentic AI, what's left to do? Or where do you focus the humans to work? What do they do? Do you sit there with their feet up, drinking sangria on the beach, or what do they do?
Yeah, people can do that, but I don't think people will be happy doing that. So you mentioned, so I'm very passionate about music. I know that you are as well, and you mentioned the 80s and the 90s, at least from the time that I grow up and I start listening to music and be passionate about it. And you have lots of interesting booms in music there, right? It's almost in a month you could have like 3 or 4 or 5 different bands coming in with completely different sound that you start learning. I don't feel it nowadays as much. I think this is much, but these are the peaks and the valleys. It's normal, right? And I do think nowadays, as well, in terms of creativity, the humans are basically in a little bit more stagnation in terms of things that starts stagnation in the sense of big ideas, disruptive ideas. So we have AI, definitely, that is a big one, but many other things is still very alike. They're very similar. That's why when we ask AI to generate content, it seems something new, but at the same time is more than what we have seen, not a big, completely different. And I think that will empower humans to actually make those revolutions, make things that we never thought about. Not even AI can generate something in that, because it's not alike with anything else. So I think, yeah, drinking on the beach and thinking about new ideas when you get bored. I'm bored about being at the beach, and I do need to do something. I had an idea. I want to try this out, right? And things will evolve, right? If I told my grandparent that there will be a job like called personal trainer, he would not believe that anyone will need a personal trainer. So things evolve like this, right? Something that we never thought about what humans will do. Well, they will definitely do many things. I would.
Oh, so what you're saying is that basically you believe that this kind of this technological revolution then opens up people to then start to disrupt or evolve other areas which have been
Yeah.
kind of sacred and not touched for many, many decades. That's the
Yes.
opportunity, you could say.
Yes, definitely. This will catapult the world for an exponential growth, right? If you look at what conversations are being AI taking over, I don't believe on AI taking over, because even if they take over, we will not realize, because you can only make sense of technology and understand if you understand the technology. If you don't understand, it passes through you, right? If I shipped like an engine of a car to the prehistoric world, they would look at that. What they do, they just throw the engine from a cliff to break them out in pieces and see what is inside. So if you don't understand technology, you don't know what it is. So, and you cannot do anything with it. So for having an AGI or something like that, you need to understand how it works. So it will make you a superhuman as well. Because at that point, you know how to use that technology. You understand, you don't need to understand everything that it does, because you don't need, for example, I don't understand really, I have vague concepts of how a laptop works or a CPU works, right? I don't know all the details. I never built a CPU, but I could explore that if I wanted, but I don't need to, right? I have the basic understanding. I know the basics of it, but that is not fundamental for me to understand that, to be able to build software. And the same way for other people, you don't need to know all the details, but you need to know the basic concepts, how it works, how it operates, and then how to use that technology. And once you start leveraging that technology, it makes you what I call a superhuman. What we don't know how humans will be when that happens, we don't know, but there won't be like a human that doesn't understand anything, and there is an AGI that controls the whole world and dominates the whole world, because that technology needs to be fed by knowledge from the humans. It doesn't live by itself. And if the humans don't understand it, then it is the same as nothing.
So you don't think we're going to end up in a dystopian kind of world then, where it's not going to be like Terminator or anything like that?
No, I don't think. What I'm afraid is how we use technology, because we've proven over time that, for me, technology is never bad. It's how we plan to use it is the problem, right? And we as humans continue to be, honestly, not much evolving much. While technology evolves a lot, humans gets a little bit stagnated, and they cannot get connected and collaborative themselves to find ways of using the technology on our best interests.
So you use it with the good heart in mind, not the non-good heart.
You can call it good heart, but I call it being smart, because if you use technology in the wrong ways, that wrong way will get you at some point. And this is not related with karma; it's how things are, right? If you don't make your environment and your place a healthy environment, you will suffer with time with that. So people may be short term, have short termism and decisions, and use the technology for things that wars and things like that, but in the long term they will suffer with that. They will not have an interesting world. I would dream about a world that we can actually explore the space, not traveling in the space, because I don't think humans on the space are you lose your friends, you lose the things that make you human, but you can control machines to actually go there and explore new things. I dream about that. I dream about humans can actually do this, can look at the stars, can go to the beach and drink cocktails and have brilliant ideas that unveil the next technological advancement. But right now we are so stuck in the grinding, right, every day to the focus of getting the salary and the money back. That is probably the most bottleneck in our world, in being civilized, right? So when I don't know when AI actually come with all this revolution, we as humans, how we will organize, right? Because yes, we don't need as many humans working because the machines are doing the work. So what is it for the human? I think there is a lot that humans can do, but not with this current society, how we see things, how we exchange a piece of hours of work for money and so on. That is very obsolete. I would say that money is very important for everyone, but it's a technology that is so obsolete that is a bottleneck right now. And we need to find definitely different systems.
Well, you know what we're doing? We're going back to pebbles. We're going to get rid of fiat currency, all this crypto stuff. We're going to go back to pebbles. Yeah. So I'm just going to have to send you some pebbles.
Okay.
Yeah? As payment. Yeah. So I'll send you a bag of pebbles from the beach. Yeah.
Great
no,
stuff.
thank you for having that conversation about that, because I think it's a relevant topic. It's about, because obviously we go through these S curves of, you know, allegedly technology innovation and stuff like that, but then it's then how does the world and organizations and individuals, how do they cope with that? How do they evolve, and what do they do about it? You know, what do they do and how do they reframe what's possible? That's the kind of important piece. Fantastic. So yeah, I mean, thank you for coming on the show today, Mr. Farinha. It's been a pleasure to have you on, Hugo. And I suppose for people that are interested, because obviously, you know, we didn't go into any specific things you're working with on you know, with Virtuoso, but you know, for people that want to know more about you and more about what you're working on and this absolute seismic shift that you've enabled for all these organizations you're working with, and getting rid of that bottleneck, which is, you know, has been a pain and continues to be a pain for a lot of organizations. Yeah, it's not, because, you know, Virtuoso isn't, I presume, yet in every organization, but obviously you've got a mission to do that. What's the best way of finding more out about that topic?
Reaching out, so they can go to virtuosoqa.com and basically reach out to us, and we will see where we can help.
Okay. And I presume they can find you on LinkedIn and Twitter and X and Snapchat and TikTok, I presume.
Yeah, for sure. I don't use TikTok for sure.
Maybe you could be the first CTO on TikTok. You know, like, you know, dancing CTO. You know, maybe.
I think that I never installed TikTok, but yeah, I can give it a try, especially the dancing part.
Never say never. Never say never. So thank you very much. That was Hugo Farinha, co-founder and CTO of Virtuoso QA. Virtuoso QA, is that right? Yeah.
Yes, Virtuoso QA, yeah.
And that was Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. See you soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Andy, for the opportunity.
No problem. Absolutely no problem at all. Pleasure.